Good morning, golf universe. How you doing? This is another episode of the Cover One Golf Podcast. You are joined by myself, my man David Tilton, and producer Chris Kepner. What is going on? Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. It's always nice on a Friday morning to be with you, gentlemen.
Yeah. And golf. I see, Chris. You got your golf shirt on. Does that mean you're golfing today, or are you taking the day off?
I wish I was playing. It's number one, it's way too hot. But that wouldn't always stop me. I just have a ton of work, so I don't think I'm going to be playing today now.
Yeah, there's nothing. It is pretty hot here in Western New York. We had this crazy heat wave here. I'm sure you guys got it over your way in New Jersey, and till it's always hot this time of year where you're at. So you're probably just laughing at us for being so.
We're a little bit used to it here. It's just what it is.
Honestly,
I'm a heat guy. Like, I love the summer. I'm not a cold weather guy, so where I live is kind of perfect for me. My wife is
yeah.
the opposite. She likes the cold fall weather, so I'm a summer guy. I love the vibes in the summer. I love the hot weather. It doesn't bother me too much.
I'm a big fall golf guy, even though it's probably harder than summer. You don't get the runoff conditions. Actually, Till, you and I were texting a little earlier about some of those like rollout conditions can be nice to play with. But fall golf, even though I lose balls in the leaves,
The
just like
leaves,
that
man,
that
it's tough.
temperature late September up here in Western New York, and how beautiful everything is just absolutely pristine for me. To your point, Chris, like it can get a little hot. So let's jump right into that because I played quite a bit of golf here again this week. Wrapping up, my kids are actually, I just dropped them off for the last day of school. And so I got my kids for the summer here from here on out. And so I really was able to ramp up quite a bit since March, playing a ton. And I packed it in again here this week. And maybe I'll be able to get out. My back is pretty sore. My hand is pretty sore. I think overuse is really coming into play here in this final stretch as I'm ramping in. But with that hot weather, I took advantage. It was a little bit uncomfortably hot for a couple of days. I won't lie. But I don't know if you got out here this week, Chris. The conditions are mid-August here around Western New York, and we even got some rain storms in with this humidity and with this mix. But the rain just got sucked right into the course. Things are bouncing, things are rolling. So I played my normal courses here a little bit this week. I played Sheridan, and then I played Brighton once, and then I played Cazenovia down in South Buffalo, which I've never played before. It's an Erie County course, and actually it's pretty cool. They not the necessarily best maintained course, but a lot of challenge, a lot more challenge than it looked. I was previewing it, Chris, as you've suggested that I should do before I play a new course. And it didn't look at like as much trouble from like the GPS overlay. But once you got there, the amount of trees that they had and the way the trees, they had like low overhang on the trees. So if you got in them, you had to like really punch out. There was no like clean shot out. Played that course, but they were running. And so it was kind of a challenge in terms of the club selection that I'm used to and what
Mm.
Arcos was suggesting, because Arcos doesn't know the conditions of the ground. Right. And so like there was a few par threes where it said, hey, pull out that 8-iron. I take that 8-iron and I hit the green and then just roll, and then it continues, or it takes a bounce and goes 30 yards off the green and rolls out. And so it was definitely tough adjusting to like, again, August sort of drought conditions here. Were you able to play this week in this weather at all, Chris?
So the last time I played was on Sunday. I got 9 holes in with my family for Father's Day. Conditions were great. It was just it was kind of funny too because my father-in-law and I both had a shot that should have been out of bounds, but got a perfect bounce off a tree back into the middle of the fairway. We're just like, wow, that's a Father's Day bounce happening right there.
That's some
We
of
call that
golf,
a we
man.
call that we call that a members bounce.
Members bounce. Yeah.
But yeah, it was beautiful, and yeah, if not for the 100-degree index, I'd be out more this week for sure.
Yeah. It was actually, so we got temperatures in the 90s. The feels like we're up close to 100. But it felt actually not as bad as I maybe anticipated that it was going to based on how it looked. We still got like some consistent breeze. I'm not very accurate, so I spent a lot of time in shade along the fairway. So I got myself into the shade quite a bit. But as long as we had sunscreen, I brought plenty of water. It wasn't the worst. I expected to be just like drenched and miserable. The thing for me was, I think, compounding how often I've played with that type of conditions led to some fatigue for sure. And I really felt for the first time how impactful fatigue can be to your swing, to your game, and to the mentals, right? When it bleeds into hitting behind the ball, not being able to get your hips around, some pain as a 40-year-old starting to come up, creep into the game. That kind of bleeds into, I remember one of the days I was playing Brighton, I played 9 with my neighbor, felt pretty good. We both had a good 9. We were in a cart, moving along good. And then he left. He was getting some pain. So he left. And I continued on, and I had a good 2 first holes. And I was like, all right, I'll finish this out. And then I got like deep enough into the course where I was thinking about quitting the round, but it was like too far of a walk back to my car. So I was like, well, I might as well just like finish this round. But it was like I was playing really poorly. I was hitting behind the ball. My drives were becoming erratic, and I just felt really tired. And that was probably the worst I felt out on a golf course this year with that type of fatigue and stuff. And I was still able to grind out a decent score. My putter was still working pretty good for me, but it wasn't the prettiest. David, do you want to? We talked on Father's Day. I was at the range with my family, striping balls in front of my wife, which felt good because she knows I spend so much time golfing that if I was like really erratic at the range on Father's Day, she would be like, why are you spending so much time on this game? And you're just terrible at it. So that felt good, but you weren't having the same, what's going on with your swing? Are you ready to talk about it in front of the people? What's happening right now?
Yeah, so I mean, you guys know I got Arcos, like set it up. I've had a couple rounds with it. I think for me right now, like worrying a little bit about that too much. So today when I'm playing, I'm gonna go no Arcos. I'm just gonna go out there. But I've been battling some demons, chili dippers, laterals, whatever you want to call them. I won't say the S word, but I've been doing some things to try to adjust and really try to just fight through it. I have a father-son tournament tomorrow with my father-in-law, and we're paired with my brother and my dad, so we're all playing together, which will be fun. But yeah, something I got to work through. Went out last night with my dad, and we played like 10, 12 holes, and I was kind of starting off a little rough, but I played 7 holes in a row at 1 over par. And so it was like, it's a very weird spot for me right now because I'm trying to kind of just find what's working. And I've gone through this in the past. Every couple of years, this seems to pop up for me because my swing mechanically is not really that great. So, it's just one of those things where I'm trying to battle through it right now, and just whatever I've got working, and whatever I've got to work with, I'm just going to go out there with it. Thankfully, like you said, like my putting's been really good lately, so that's kind of helping me as well. But yeah, I've been battling some demons, I guess you could say, with my swing. But at the end of the day, like I'm just trying to tell myself it's just golf, right? It's not life and death. And I think for me, and when you have that type of battle with the chili dippers or with the laterals, it's so much of it comes down to how you can mentally get through it, right? Because it becomes a mental battle with yourself as much as it is physical flaws, obviously. But the mental aspect of standing over the ball and having that fear, right? It's a fear thing, and it's just that lack of confidence is not what you want. So, I found something that was kind of working. It was not really ideal, but I was kind of working with it. And so I'm kind of trying to get back to my natural feel swing and what makes sense. And so we'll see today. I'm playing with my wife, and we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes.
Now, is this happening like off the tee box approach? Is it just irons? I know your putter's still strong. So like
So
where are you getting this bleeding into your game?
So when it usually crops up for me, it's usually on my less than 100% swings.
Yeah, those are
So
tough, man.
what tends to happen is I either swing with too much arms, and my body and my club is moving towards the ball as opposed to, moving through the ball on the swing. And so obviously that brings the hosel into play, and that's when, okay, that happens, and then it suddenly creeps into the rest of your irons. The driver, like woods and stuff, it doesn't really happen. Yeah, I'll hit it off the heel a bit more than I normally do, but I'm a cut player with my driver typically anyway, so that hasn't really impacted the driver. But it has impacted my less than 100% shots in my irons. But I would trying to battle through it, like I said last night. Ended the night hitting a couple good iron shots. So we'll see how it goes today. Changing some things around with my alignment, but this is one of those things that happened to me during COVID when I was really like over practicing and like just swinging. Like probably like for me, I am a person who, if I over practice, it doesn't help me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the person who's gonna benefit from going out every single day and hitting 100 balls. Like that doesn't work for me. So I think part of it too is I have been playing a lot lately as well, and maybe it's a little bit of overplaying, over practicing as well. So, again, it's something I'll eventually get through. I hopefully it's sooner rather than later, but yeah, we'll see how it goes today.
Yeah, I think this is a great part of golf though, and why, like, if you're a One Pass member, we do in our new Discord setup, we have a golf channel. Having this group, our text group, Dave, you and I chat quite a bit offline on this stuff. I'm sort of trending in the wrong direction. I was pushing towards a 10 to single index about a month ago. I'm trending back a little bit here towards like 12. If I keep playing this way, back to 13. And I do think, to your point, how you felt about practice, it's a little bit overuse, overplaying too much. And then that bleeds into the confidence. Like right now, I just don't feel confident over any shot. I'm pretty erratic off the tee box right now. My approach game is not getting better, and I don't feel confident over the ball. I'm hitting behind the ball quite a bit. So that's all fatigue. And then fatigue bleeds into the mentals. And you talk about it all the time, Tilt, that confidence plays a big role in a lot of
Huge.
this stuff.
It's
The
huge.
only place I feel somewhat confident is on the green with the putter. I don't think fatigue really bleeds into that aspect of the game. So luckily my putter has saved me from letting those scores get crazy, because it feels like I am playing golf that's over the hundreds. And I'm still able to score lower than that. And I think it's just from the putter being there. But I am a little bit, I'm going to try to get out there and play today just to get in one more round here. But I'm kind of excited that a break's coming up for me and a chance to sort of reset. I think take like a mini off season within the season and get my body recovered, work on my back a little bit, get some stretched out, and get back to some of the basics with my swing and get that confidence in my swing back a little bit. Because if I can get back to where I was a month ago, where just confident over every shot, I think that I can, work my way back up toward pushing towards single index this year. But I think that leads us into a good conversation here. We were going to talk about the Olympics, but we'll maybe end on that, because you brought up over practicing. Till in one of the conversations I wanted to have with everybody, Chris, I know we talked about this of the off season and training into the off season to get ready for the season. But then once the season hit, I just started playing golf as much as I possibly could and putting in rounds. And the kind of topic came up in my mind when I was texting with Tilt over the weekend, and I was at the range and he was working through some of the shank stuff that he was doing, and thinking like, I'm having these issues. My game's slowly getting away from me. Like, what should my practice routine in season be versus just going out and brute forcing my way through playing rounds, which is still good practice. Like, you get real elements, you get real grass, you get all the stuff that you need to work on. But is that necessarily the right way to refine your game, to work on your game? Should I be taking more breaks? Should recovery be part of my practice and spreading out my rounds a little bit? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Chris, what are you doing right now? I know you took a little bit of a break. You played on Sunday and then didn't play the rest of the week. Is it just, are you off from golf, or are you working on anything? Are you reading anything, like preparing your mentals? What do you do in that period of time?
It's funny that you threw this to me first, because I will, like 95% of the time, just play 9 holes or 18 holes if I've got time to play golf. I mean, if there's something specific that's going on in my game, like I'm, consistently hitting left off the tee like I was earlier in the season or something like that, then going to the range and hitting a bunch of balls can help to sort of figure out how to correct that. And but for just like normal maintenance throughout the season, I don't see, and someone might say this is why I have a higher index than you guys. I don't see the importance of going to the range consistently just to kind of maintain, or I guess if I had like a half hour to an hour or something, then doing something like working on chipping or putting would be worthwhile for me. But more often than not, like if I've got that time, I'm just going to get out and play, because I'm going to be putting myself in real golf situations with real lies and real challenges. And I feel like that is more helpful in terms of developing the game than hitting off a mat, or being on a putting green. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
Till, I know you said like in that COVID year you were over practicing. Does that mean you don't? I know you go to the range and you get to the range and you do some work, and right now you're working through some stuff, but like what is your normal not golf stuff, even if it's fitness related? Like is there stuff where you're doing to work up your game so when you get to the course you're ready?
Yeah, I mean, before getting to the course, I do have like some foam balls and stuff that I like to chip around with in the house, and like that's more for like just kind of getting a sense of contact, you know, with chipping and things like that. I have tended to at times like try to take some videos of myself, but at the end of the day, like I already know what my flaws are, and it's like that's kind of, unless I kind of commit to really wholesale changes and like really, really work on it like every day, since I'm playing a lot, it's really hard to kind of balance that with then also going out on the course and trying to implement something you haven't really fully committed to yet or fully practiced on yet. So for me, my typical practice, honestly, is like I said in our pet peeve show, I like to get to the course early, like 45 minutes to an hour early before my round. I hate being rushed to the first tee. So I really like to use that sort of pre-round time, 45 minutes to an hour, to really get my practice in. And I got down to a pretty good routine where I would start with chipping at the short game area. I would then work to the range and do my sort of like, I always start with a wedge or an 8-iron. Then I go to my 6-iron. Then I do driver. And then I kind of come back to the wedges and short irons at the very end. Then I go to the putting green. And I would do like kind of 15 minutes of each, right? So I wasn't spending a ton, like I wasn't spending 5 minutes chipping, 40 minutes hitting balls, and then 5 minutes putting, right? I'd like to spread it out. And I will say that my time I've been spending on the putting green has really translated well to on the course. And what I like to do is like I like to start with some 10 to 12 footers, and then I really like to practice really long lag putts on the putting green. And then I'll kind of finish with like 6 to 8 footers, 4 to 5 footers, right? So for me, that time before the round is probably where, generally speaking, I get my most practice in. Recently, I've been going to the range more, but our range is going through some maintenance right now. So it's mats. Our range is typically grass, but right now it's going through maintenance. So it's mats, and our short game area is also closed at the moment because they're doing new grass there. So that's been a little bit limited. To Kep's point, like hitting off the mat, I hate it personally. I hate hitting off mats. It either gives a false sense of confidence or a false sense of the opposite if you're not hitting it well. So I try not to read too much into that. And honestly, that's kind of where my problems started, like snowballing recently, was when I'm practicing going to the range, hitting off mats and that type of thing. So anyway, I guess in short, my ideal practice is kind of before my round, that 45 minutes to an hour that I get to do that 15-minute block of each section.
Okay. So I feel like a bit of a psychopath after hearing your guys' responses. I think I talked about on the show before, one of my favorite parts of the game of golf is, more than any hobby I have, is you can really set goals, and the goals are real, and whether it's index or scoring or whatever it is, you can see it. And especially with having something like Arcos. And so I've set goals for myself, and those goals get adjusted, but it's the grind to getting to the goals, building habits that I absolutely am addicted to. And so I love playing. I love getting out and playing. I'm addicted to that. But mixed in that, like I come home, so daily practice starts with fitness, like all of the stuff that I've been doing in terms of, I try to work out every day anyway, whether it's golf or not. The only workout really that I do right now that's not golf related is I have a Peloton bike. I ride that, and that I think helps. Just cardiovascular workout is good, but there's no real golf strength or anything like that. But then everything else I do is like trying to develop a little bit more power, a little bit more swing speed, a little bit more rotational strength. So I do a lot of lunges, squats, things like that, almost daily, to try to keep that power and maintain it throughout the season. I probably work on it a little harder in the off season. I don't want to strain myself during the season. So I bring the weights down a little bit, but I want to maintain that strength through the season, and continue to grow. And I will say, I think on top of the technology increase that I got this year, I do think that strength training has increased my ability to push the ball down. I'm definitely, when I get a hold of it, I'm out driving my friends that are around the same area as I am, in terms of index and stuff. And I think a lot of that is strength because they have similar technology. And so I want to keep maintaining that. But one thing, I have a high index friend who I was golfing with the other day who felt real frustrated, continuing to double bogey, and he can probably push the ball similarly to me in terms of like distance off the tee and stuff like that. But where his game was really lacking is that touch, that feel. And one thing that I've been doing and I try to make a habit of, and I notice that when I find the time, even if it's 15 minutes after dinner and the kids are watching TV, if I go out back, I got a little chipping net, and I have a tiny little postage stamp yard here in town of Tonawanda, but I've got probably between 10 to 15 feet where I can chip, and I just go out there and I throw 50 balls down and I chip through them, and I do it in the way that I would approach, behind the ball every shot, stepping to the ball, working through my routine. Cause I think working on that routine also helps me prepare, that I'm making sure that I do that for every single shot through the course play. But then what it's helped me with is when I'm doing it and I'm working on it, when I get to the course and I've been working on it, my chipping game and short game is much better. And I'm able to visually almost like dial back, like I'm in my backyard. I just got to hit this. I just got to hit it to the net in my backyard and get it on the green and roll out. And that visualization of like, I know this shot, I know where in the backstroke that I have to go to get 10 feet, to get 15 feet or whatever it is. I don't always hit every time, but that confidence and visualization and all that stuff has helped me so much in the short game. And I think at the very least, no matter your index, every golfer should have some kind, whether it's a bucket, a hula hoop, or just a spot in your yard. I have probably the smallest yard that I can think of. And if I can do it in my backyard, now, if you don't have confidence that you're going to like hit it over your fence and hit into your neighbor's yard, don't use real balls. To your point, though, Till, they have really nice foam balls. I've got some of those ones that are like, they have a realistic feel off of the club, but they don't hit as far, and they do no damage, right? They're for close proximity stuff. You can even do stuff like that. They have some of those, they're like hollow cylinders. They're called birdie balls or whatever. They're designed basically for this type of practice. But I would at least encourage every golfer, no matter what your index is, to try to find 15 to 30 minutes, not every day, but a couple times a week, where you can chip. Because I think most golfers I play with, that we lose a lot of strokes in the like duffing one up, and then you're 2 to get on, and then everybody I know is probably 2 to 3 putting. Like nobody's 1 putting every time, and so that's a par 4. You're already playing behind the ball and you're putting up double bogeys. So to save strokes around the green, I think is super important. And I've really noticed like the last couple of weeks, I haven't put in that time in that area, and it's really bled into worse short game of just not having that maintenance and feel and confidence.
I can tell you firsthand that, so you guys know my wife plays, Ashley plays, and she's playing more this year than she has the last couple years, and her scores have dramatically improved from just purely from around the greens and getting the ball on the green with her first chip. Because look, as a high index player, one of the calling cards of being a high index player is you don't hit a lot of greens, right? So you do find yourself in a lot of situations where your ball is around the green, but you're not on it. And really, to your point, AQ, limiting the damage and just making sure you get that chip on the green somewhere to where it's reasonably within 2-putt range can really save you from blowing up on a hole. And Ashley, like, that's been like the biggest improvement in her game this year is like when she's around the green, she's not super focused necessarily on getting it close, but she's focused on her form, making good contact, getting it on, and pretty much 2-putting. And like she's gone from, really being a liability and like sculling it or duffing it and like making those big 7s or 8s to now making 5s and 6s, like worst case scenario. And like her scores have gotten better. She keeps an index. She's been in the 90s her last like 5 or 6 rounds. So I will agree. And for me personally, since I joined this club several years ago, that is the single part of my game that has gotten the most improved is my short game, because of obviously helps have the facilities, but like spending the time on it and realizing how much it really can save your scores. And just for me personally, like I have seen it firsthand by playing with a lot of people over the years that, to your point, people lose shots around the green way too frequently. And I did not want to be in that position either.
Yeah.
One thing that I like to do, because I was talking about how it's hard to find the time to practice. If I'm bringing my daughter to softball practice or to the playground or something where I don't need to be 100% engaged in, watching her and making sure she's alive and healthy, I'll bring my chipping club and a bunch of balls and a hula hoop and just kind of like find some grass and hit some shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone should do it. And that was my argument with my friend. Like, he doesn't want to pay for lessons. He doesn't want to do all this stuff. And I was like, at the very least, find a way. He's got a bigger backyard than me.
Yeah, that's free. Like, you have the
It's
clubs.
free.
You have the balls.
And it honestly, to get through the 50 balls, it really only takes me 15, 20 minutes if I'm
Doesn't
just
take
like
long.
staying on routine. And there's that. What I'm really excited, as the kids are getting out of school, I'll obviously have less time for rounds here throughout the summer. But last summer, one thing that I really was able to do still is my wife gets home, we make dinner, we do all this stuff. I'll head over to the course, and I can even bring my kids for this because they like putting and working on that stuff too. Is both courses here have little short areas. There's no bunkers or anything, but stuff I like to do. So Till, you talked about like setting up before round putting and all that stuff. My ADD can't handle just like working through drills and putting drills and like being stringent and working on that. But a game that I found that I really enjoy, and I think that helps me, and it's as close as I can get to like realistic, is I just bring one ball out, I bring a couple wedge options and my putter, and I play basically that my around the green chip is a birdie shot, and I go to a hole and I try to just keep score for myself, and I'm trying to make pars, and I'm trying to get up and down, and I'm putting myself in different lies and different situations where I'm chipping on and trying to one putt bogey at the least, because I'm happy playing bogey golf. That's where I want to be. And double bogeys are a failure. And I even like last year I was sort of like keeping a scorecard as I went through and trying to play, basically trying to stay bogey golf through 9 holes and do that as a round. And it's something I've even wanted to do competitively with friends. It's like, hey, we don't have time for an hour. Let's go to the green, work on this, and make it a game where we're playing against each other, just trying to get up and down. Because those are the rounds that I've played best, is when I'm able to, I'm going to be a little bit erratic in approach. Like, that's just common with recreational golfers. I'm going to be a little bit missing off the tee. But if I can get near the green and get up and down, I can play bogey golf almost at any course around here. And then I can lower my index. I can meet my goals. That's where I can save myself as much strokes as possible. And so I can do that in 30, 40 minutes and go there and work on that. And another nice thing is here, Sheridan Golf Course is one I talk about a lot. They have like some angles to their short area. So to your point, Chris, I'm not just hitting off flat grass. I can find some different lies, find some different angles, play that game. And then there's a field in between softball field and the course. And it's about maybe 75 to 100 yards. And I can park my car and I have a little ball bag and I can throw down 50 balls and work on that pitching between 65 to 100 yards, chipping and pitching, and dial in that aspect because I'm not great on approach on those areas. And so that's probably over here over the summer. I think I'll be able to add that to my practice routine where I don't have as much time to play, but I'll have some time to work on that short area stuff as we get into the fall where I can ramp up again once the kids are back in school. So I'm excited to see if I can build routines that then translate into the fall as I'm tracking all my data. I know right now where I am at approach. I know that's a great thing about Arcos is I know how bad I am from 100 yards out on approach and what my proximity is. And if I could dial in this practice routine, I'll be able to see that data in real time. Is like, did that practice routine actually help me, or am I just wasting my own time? So that's one thing I'm really excited about here is I'm kind of building a mini off season within my season.
I've noticed too that it's kind of changed my approach when I'm setting up for a chip around the green. I'm visualizing a hula hoop of landing spot, right? Like thinking about where the ball is going to land and how it's going to roll out. So you're kind of reading the green, right, while you're doing it. But yeah, I'm like seeing that hula hoop, and it's kind of it's been interesting.
It makes a huge difference.
I will say what you just said there is, I think, what a lot of people fail to do. I think most recreational golfers will get fixated on looking at the pin, and that's not really the way you should be approaching short game shots, right? You need to be thinking about a landing area that's maybe like hula hoop size if you're pretty dialed in, or even bigger, right? If you're not so dialed in, but just landing area and kind of understanding how that's going to affect the rollout. Because probably most recreational golfers too can't get the spin that the best players.
We're not hitting flop shots with a 64-degree wedge.
So I think that was a good point, Kep, because like I think most people get fixated on looking at the pin, and that's really not what you should be doing around the greens.
Yeah, and to that point is also when you're playing off real types of lies in that short game area is I made a mistake just yesterday, and I was between clubs because I've got a lot of different ways to chip on to the green now, and they all run off and roll off in different ways. And it's knowing those, right? Is like, okay, if I pull a pitching wedge or a 9-iron, I've got to hit it a little less because I am going to get some rollouts. I just got to chip it into this like just over the fringe, and then I'll get a little roll. And one thing I've been doing lately, Chris, is instead of necessarily when I get to a short area practice before I get to a round, I literally just like toss a couple balls to a spot to see how things are running for the day, like with my hand, not even with pitch, just to kind of get that visualization to your point of visualizing where I want the ball to go and what is it going to do once it hits, because I'm just trying to get as close to the pin. I'm not going to aim for a pin. I'm not trying to put balls in. I would like it to roll in, but I'm trying to get myself in range where I can actually sink a putt and get up and down instead of giving myself these long putts. That's what I'm trying to eliminate is you saw me, I still do it where my chips, I hesitate a little on the downswing and I'm coming up short, and then it's like rolling just over the fringe and I've got a long putt, which turns into 3 putts often for me, and it just bleeds on the scorecard. So I think that visualization piece is huge, and definitely something, again, that I think anyone can do if you get creative. Everyone can. It doesn't even have, to your point, it doesn't have to be a hula hoop. Just find a spot and hit to a spot and visualize, okay, I got 10 yards to go. And I do think it works in taking it onto the course that you can like recreate that visualization in real settings.
It could just be like a patch of dead grass or something, like just a target, any target.
Yeah. I know a guy I play with just uses a 5-gallon bucket. He has like a garden pail bucket, and he's like, I never actually barely get the ball in the bucket, but it's just having a target that I'm working to hit at.
And that's interesting too. The like the height element of that, like the shot shape of hitting into a bucket. When I was in the off season, I was using like an empty like case, like a soda case, and like trying to hit it in the spot where it would hit the back and then bounce back to me. So you had to hit it like halfway up on the back of it to get it to roll right back and then hit it again. So that was kind of cool just to kind of think about not only where you're landing it, but the, how high you're getting it off the ground, because sometimes you might want to keep it lower. Sometimes you might want to get a little more loft depending on the situation that you're in.
Yep. There are some nets, which I don't have this kind of net. My net has like a target in the center and then like a bigger round basket around it, which gives you kind of different shots to take, but there's some that have 3. So it's like a more of a higher arcing shot and then like a low trajectory shot. And I think that's also something to work on, depending how, like, again, going back to this past week where everything's running really fast. I kind of figured it out as we were going through the round, and I was able to, when things are running slow, I can use those bump and runs. I can use a wedge and get a little more run out of those chips, where when it's running fast, I can pull out a higher lofted wedge and get a little softer shot. And then it's still going to run a little bit like that. And so having multiple shots that you can shoot from the same areas, or like yesterday, again, I said I made that mistake. I had a very tight lie. The grass was cut like super down, and I probably just needed to give it a little tap with a wedge to get it up and run. And instead I pull out my 58 degree thinking like, oh, I'll get a nice like spinny shot. Like I'm some professional who can just do that on whenever I want. And I sculled it over the green, and then I had to putt back up. Again, just bleeding out shots just because I made a bad decision on something I have practiced. I've repped. I should know what to do in that situation. And so I guess I just got to get back on the practice and work on that more, so that that's not even a question when I come up to the ball. It's like, I've seen this, I can visualize it, I know what this is going to do. I pull out that wedge and give the shot I need. And so I'm going to continue to grind at that, so I'm making the right decisions. Tilt pieced out there for a second. I bet he had a work call or something here come up, but I want to transition over here now, Chris, a little bit to professional golf. Not so much, we're a week late on anything major related, and everybody's probably said all there is to say about the US Open. It was a fun weekend of golf. I think it was good for golf. Definitely dominated the sports world for the weekend in terms of what people were talking about. But following up on that, we got word about the announcement of who was going to be on the US Olympic golf team this year. And there was a little bit of controversy in terms of that pick, because we had obviously no controversy in Scottie Scheffler representing the US in the Olympics, #1 golfer in the world, even though he had a bad weekend. The dominating way he's been playing over a year and a half, 2 years here, obviously he's a pick. Xander Schauffele, I think by every metric, is the #2 golfer in the world, whether it's OWGR, Tuger rankings, which I like a lot, or Data Golf. They all have him as second. Collin Morikawa, who on our first stream, we were talking about how he was one of those guys like Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, who was, his game wasn't quite where it wanted to be, but he's just risen up the charts, and he's right now third or fourth, but the third American in Data Golf's rankings, and he is fourth in Tuger rankings as well. And I think he's 7th in OWGR rankings, but he's got to be the third American. But then the controversy comes in Wyndham Clark being the 4th person selected for this team. Do you find that pick to be controversial? And I have, my take is that the controversy isn't so much that Bryson DeChambeau was left out, even though we're talking about him that much, but there's a number of guys I feel like that could have been more deserving than Wyndham Clark at this point.
The 4th person on this team, I think, was always going to create some amount of controversy, because everybody has got an opinion about who should be there. It's very unlikely that it's going to be a clear-cut thing. And you're right, there are several guys who have an argument there. Bryson, if he wasn't on the LIV Tour, certainly has an argument, but we all knew going in that he wasn't eligible. He knew when he made the choice to go to LIV that he wouldn't be eligible to play in the Olympics. I mean, talk about a resume to be on the Olympic team. How about #4 American in FedEx Cup rankings, #3 American in the World Golf rankings, 4 top 5 finishes, including 1 win in 2024. Could have easily been 3 wins if not for Scottie Scheffler doing Scottie Scheffler things. That's a pretty decent resume to me. I mean, that's Wyndham Clark. I mean, I don't. The internet's going to internet is all I have to say about that. Honestly, like, the guy just made the Olympic team. I'm not his biggest fan or anything like that, but it's a little disappointing to see the sort of conversation around this pick when it should be something that he can enjoy, because he has earned it. I mean, he has just as much of a case, I think, as some of these other guys that we're going to talk about, like Cantlay and I mean, Russell Henley probably has an argument to be made if you're looking at things like data golf rankings. But I don't know. I think that it's a little bit unfortunate that the reaction is just immediately negative and just immediately looking for ways to kind of tear the guy down.
So my issue, I think, is how we come to these decisions. While I understand the purpose of the world golf rankings, they're flawed. It's not a great system. There's better resources out there that use better data to rank golfers. But that's not what they use for the Olympic picking. But I think Tuger rankings, which you can go to tuger.com, I think they do a good job, and they include live golfers, and Data Golf Rankings, who also includes live golfers. I think they do a better job overall of getting a better data set to rank golfers in terms of where they are right now. And I think if you look back at the entire year to 2 years, then yes, Wyndham Clark has played very good golf. I think if you look back at recent, which I do think should be in consideration, right? Like when the USGA, how they do index is the last 20 rounds. Your best 8 of your last 20 rounds tells you what your current index is. I think golf is such a game of, outside of like your Scottie Schefflers and really what Xander Schauffele has been doing, and obviously Rory has been towards the top for a long time, it's hard to maintain being in those top spots for long periods of time because golf is so up and down and it is so fluctuating. And there's a huge discrepancy. So like Wyndham Clark, for instance, in the world golf rankings, and I think FedEx Cup points isn't a great one either because there's certain events where you get like, so if he plays well in certain events, then he's going to rise up the points ranking system, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's currently playing some of the best golf. Like he's just accumulated points. And Data Golf though has probably the biggest gap is they have him as, so OWGR has him as the 5th ranked golfer, but Data Golf has him as 38th, and Tuger has him as the 18th best American, or the 8th best American. He's 17th on those rankings currently. And so that's where I sort of see this big gap in discrepancy. It's nothing against Wyndham Clark. I think he's a good golfer. I think that's still a good team, and the U.S. is going to have one of the best teams that they're rolling out there. I don't want to watch Patrick Cantlay in the Olympics. Like I don't enjoy why he was on it was him and Finau were one of the main groups yesterday, and he's terrible to watch. Like, and so is Brian Harman. But I think those guys right now, in terms of who's hot when you pick this team, I think they have a say in this. I think Thagala is up and coming, and he's ranked 13th in OWGR, but he's 19th, so that's better than Wyndham Clark. So I just think there's some other guys in the mix here who could have been that selection, and I think that the U.S. Olympic team and Ryder Cup and all these things maybe need to find a new way to get these teams sorted out. Every other thing besides like U.S. basketball, there's maybe the U.S. golf needs to have some type of playoff system where it's like, hey, these are the top 10 American golfers, and you have to play your way onto the team in some like shorter style event or something like that. But I think just going off OWGR ranking points is probably not the best way to put a team together. So Tilt, welcome back. We're just kind of talking about this selection, right? Like,
yeah,
obviously Wyndham Clark's the one that is the most controversial. Do you find his selection controversial with where he is, to Chris's point, there's a case. He is in OWGR rankings. He's right there. He's the 3rd best American. He's made his case throughout the body of work, but he's not playing his best golf over the last month, 2 months here as you head into the Olympics. My argument, in case you missed it, was like the USGA uses index, and your index is based on your last 8 of your last 20 rounds, which I think captures how you're currently playing golf, which golf can be so up and down outside of your Scottie Schefflers, your Rorys and stuff like that, who maintain top priority or top play for a long period of time. Do you think it should be more of a closer picture to the Olympics or the body of work you've done over the last year or two?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because if you think about like how the Olympic team is selected, which is different from the Ryder Cup, right? You can have a maximum of 4 players per country, but if you're in the top 15 of the official world golf rankings, that's the main driver of whether you make the team or not. So essentially, Wyndham Clark got an automatic select, like automatically was in, right? Because he was in the top 15 of the OWGR. And essentially that's how the 4 Americans were picked, right? Because they were all top 15 OWGR golfers. And so because of that, it leaves, in the case for the US, right, with how many good golfers there are in the US, it leaves essentially zero variability on the selections, right? Wyndham Clark was in unless he decided to not play, which case he's not. I think, if you go to something a little bit more Ryder Cup style where you have a combination of auto selections, and maybe there's like some other, maybe it's the USG. I don't know, right? It's some like US based kind of governing body that gets to pick the other 2. But again, it's only up to 4 guys for the Olympics. So it's very slim compared to the Ryder Cup, which is 12. It's a third of the number. And obviously I assume you guys were talking about this before I came on, was like the big question is like, I'm sure from a US support, all this, like Bryson would be the guy, right? Because like just the vibes that he's going to bring for the US and the support he's going to get from the US fans, like, is going to be huge. Wyndham Clark, like you said, he won the US Open last year. He's not in great form right now, but because of his official world golf ranking, he's automatically in. So I think because of the way the Olympics has decided to base their selections, it's, look, one of those things is when you went to live and like these other things, like you had to know this was going to come down the pipe at some point, right? Like you were going to need to get the official world golf points or you weren't going to be in this picture. So do I think that there's a better way to do it? Yes, but I guess in this way it removes the subjectivity. It's all based on one set of rankings. Do I agree with the rankings that are being used? I don't know, not necessarily, but at least there's no gray area.
It would almost be interesting if they could take multiple, since we have, like I was referencing Data Golf and the Tuger rankings, like maybe if they took an aggregate of multiple ranking systems, since there's known issues with like I think this is a very nuanced conversation because I don't think Liv should qualify for OWGR rankings. Like there's very specific criteria you have to meet and they refused to meet that criteria. So I don't think they should be given special access to be ranked. They should have to go to those rankings, but I still don't think that ranking system is a good one to use as a quantifying data set to make decisions. Like it's clearly flawed. Multiple data scientists have pointed out the flaws of that ranking system, especially in terms of how somebody's playing currently, where I do think Data Golf does a better job. And I do think Tuger does a better job of adding overall play, like in strokes gained and things like that. It's not necessarily all based on wins. I think the OWGR rankings overrank a tour win versus like how often like you're playing in that top 20 and how well you're currently playing. And they have a little bit more weight in those things. It's like DVOA versus just using like the NFL.com passing yardage to say who's currently playing the best at quarterback. I would defer to EPA or DVOA versus going to NFL.com and just seeing who's leading the league in passing yards. I think OWGR is kind of a volume stat more than it is a nuance stat. And so I think they've got to find a system that would be a little more nuanced for these situations. And then it wouldn't be as controversial because you could point to like, well, hey, we used a aggregate of these 3 data sets to come up with who currently is the 4 best and playing the 4 best, and not just over the past year, but within the last 2 months or whatever it is. With that said, I do think it's going to be a very good team. I think the U.S. has a real good shot at bringing home a gold medal here in the Olympics. You got Scottie Scheffler, you got Xander Schauffele. One last point here before we take off. Last year, around this time, everybody was talking about the re-rise of Ricky Fowler. Right. He was like coming into his own, getting himself back into things. I was talking about a little bit while you were off. We kind of brushed over Collin Morikawa making the team and being 3rd. And right now he's 4th in Data Golf rankings. He's right up there in Tuger rankings. He definitely earned his spot here this year and the way he's been playing. Everybody's talking about the way Bryson has played in all the majors and that he won one. Dude, Collin Morikawa has been in contention. He has been there in every major. He's been there in every signature event. He's back.
He's really bounced back. I mean,
he's back. This should be as big of a story as Ricky was, right?
Yeah. I mean, Morikawa was kind of not left for dead, but like he kind of after those 2 early majors in his career, like
It was the
he
same
was a
Spieth conversation. We were talking like
eh,
Justin Thomas Spieth, like he's fallen off.
yeah, he was a bit middling, right? And so for him to have this bounce back year that he's having now, he's really come back and like, yeah, I think like you said, like there should be no debate about his placement on the team. It's really just that last spot. I'm happy for Morikawa. I didn't necessarily love like I wasn't necessarily like a huge fan of his, like in watching the full swing and sort of
He's
just
not
some
the
of
best
that.
personality.
Yeah, he's not the best personality, but from a golf perspective, if you're a US fan, like you want him in this Olympics right
He's
now.
one of the best
Like,
iron strikers. Like
yeah.
it's shot. It's that's the funny thing here when you look at it, Chris. It's we talk about like driving and people bombing the ball, but the top three that we're not like debating at all are probably the 3 best iron strikers in the world right now: Scheffler, Schauffele, and Collin Morikawa.
It's probably the most important part of the game when it comes
Yeah.
down to it.
Yeah. And do you think we're kind of sleeping on this comeback of Morikawa? Because again, I remember last year, like everybody was buzzing about Ricky Fowler being back, and I know he's got a great personality, and fans of that period of golf loved Ricky Fowler and want to see him succeed. So I'm not taking anything away from Ricky, but we should probably be praising this comeback from Morikawa a little bit more.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we're not that far removed from him withdrawing from a tournament because of back issues, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right.
And I guess the last point I would make to you guys is like we write off guys. I think Bryson DeChambeau got written off, dealing with injury, dealing with some swing issues, some club issues. One of the reasons I think he went to Live Golf wasn't sure if he would rebound to his former form. Brooks Koepka basically said so. He was like, I took the money because I didn't know if I would get back to being the golfer that I was and winning majors. He was able to come back. The way we talk about the struggles that Justin Thomas has been going through over the last year, the pressure for like a Jordan Spieth to return to where he was earlier in his career, do we kind of write some of these guys off too soon? And seeing a guy like Morikawa be able to bounce back from that slump, like maybe it is just a lingering injury that we don't know about for somebody, or maybe it is just they need a swing change and getting the right coach or the right caddy on the bag. Like, is the Collin Morikawa and Ricky Fowler last year a sign that some of these guys can actually still work their way back as they approach their 30s?
I would say this is like golf on the aggregate and kind of like a microcosm of like what we deal with as amateurs and like having days where we're playing well, days where we're not, and like things are very cyclical and we don't maybe appreciate the sustainability, how hard it is to have that sustained success at a really, really high level. Like Scottie's doing it now somewhat, right? And it's not like part of this issue is like going back to Tiger, right? And how dominant he
He
was for
set the
so
bar
long.
way too. Yeah.
And so like the sustained success that Tiger had shouldn't be compared to like what I would call sustained success of like Spieth had sustained success from a golf standard, right? Scottie's having it now. Justin Thomas, Morikawa had it that year where he won the 2 majors. Like I just think like things timing wise have to work out with these guys. Like you said, getting the right combination of caddy, whatever, having that confidence, being in the right frame of mind with your swing. I don't think these guys ever were really like bad. They were none of these guys were bad golfers, but right, like the pool of talent is so deep right now, whether it's PGA, Live, whatever, just in the golf world, and winning and finishing super high in events is so difficult in golf that it's unfair in a way to kind of say if a guy doesn't come in the top 25 that he's not doing well, right? And I know there's a little bit more variability than that, but like I just feel like we are we still have that subliminal or subconscious like Tiger dominance sustainability in our heads that unless someone does that, they're not like they're either like down and they come back. But in reality, like these guys have always all been good and it's just like one of those things where it's cyclical in my mind. So I don't think we're writing them off, but I also think there's just so many more good golfers now that it's like you can't really sustain as long as you have. And that's why I think what Scottie's doing right now is really impressive because he's kind of done it longer maybe than some of the other stretches of guys we've talked about.
Yeah. And I think actually that Tiger thing hurt Scottie because I don't think we appreciate necessarily what he's doing, because it's like, well, he's not Tiger. That's what everybody always comes back to, is like, well, he's not dominating the way Tiger did. And it's like, man, nobody does, right? Like, and so like to be able to do what he's done is still super impressive in the golf world. So it's about that time to wrap up here. Anyone that's listening, whether it's podcast, YouTube, wherever you are, please toss us a like, please toss us a subscribe, give us a review, rate us, make a comment. It doesn't even have to be positive. Just tell
You can
me.
diss me for
Yeah,
having the chili dippers. Go tell me
chili
I suck.
dippers, yeah, being high index players, tell us we're wasting our time, golf stupid, whatever you want to write. I don't care. Just comment, interact with us, show some support here. We are trying to build this thing up. Share it if you know a golfer in your life that you think would enjoy this kind of conversation about relatable style golf, pro golf, things like that. Tell them to come give us a follow on social media and like and subscribe to our channel here, because we are trying to build it up. Anything else for the people here, guys, as we get into for me, actually for everybody, the first week of summer is just starting. We just had the summer solstice yesterday, so summer is officially here for everyone. Anything you got for the people before we get out of here, guys?
Summer solstice yesterday, I went out at like 6:15 and I got 12 holes in, which was pretty nice. So like that's pretty solid. Father-son tournament coming up Saturday. Hopefully I don't embarrass myself, and we'll just see how it goes.
And Chris, you got any golf coming up here?
We'll have to see how the weather goes, but congrats to Tiger on a lifetime exemption. That was pretty cool to see. And yeah, I mean, if you are playing out in the heat, just make sure you got lots of water.
Yeah. I'm going to grind out one more here today. And then I'm real excited. I'm going to start bringing my boys to the par 3 and kind of just like chip and putt around with them here this summer. And I got my kid in a golf camp that runs all summer, starts in July. And so my game might take a back seat, but I'm totally cool with that, knowing that my kids are starting to get into golf, and this period of time is more for them. It's summer break, and he's at that age where it's core memories now. Like, he's really building those memories as a second, third grader, and hopefully that's he looks back and that's a lifetime for him of enjoyable golf. So I enjoy you guys. Thanks for coming out, taking your morning to be with us. Tilt, thank you. Chris, I appreciate you guys. Until the next time, this is Cover One Golf Podcast, and we are out.